Hey folks, and here's a story of a game designer probably overreaching her concept of reality. In this case, it has to do with someone from ArenaNet. If you don't know who ArenaNet is, they are the developers of Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2, very popular MMORPG. And I believe Jennifer Scheurle is the lead designer for that series or that game. So she has a few crazy ideas of what is going on in the world, or at least in the States right now, in regards to police brutality or the police use of excessive force. So, what happened to George Floyd? So, she has a bit of a Twitter rant. I guess it's a rant. I don't know if it's a manifesto or what the hell she's talking about, but let's just see. Now, before I begin, there's lots of people I know in gaming, whether they're designers, developers, or actual gamers, who are very much interested in strategy and tactics. They see that not only in a game, but also in life and finance and in training and martial arts, all sorts of disciplines. So training and tactics are what they consider, or tactics and strategy are what they consider very key to being a better gamer, a better designer, a better person, all throughout life. So I see nothing wrong with people having ideas. Designers have ideas. They make designs, they develop designs, and they make fun games, perhaps. So there's nothing wrong with that. Ideally, it's when you actually think, oh, I can solve a problem with my bird's eye view understanding of things, and then coming across as a blithering idiot. Now, she has the pronouns in her profile. I'm going to let that pass and say, okay, fine. She's obviously very good at what she does. She's successful. But what is she talking about here? Here we go. I know we're seeing a bunch of feel-good stories about cops kneeling with us and marching with us, and it's okay to take them to feel hope and solidarity. Yeah, it is, because they're with you and they're walking with you through the streets. That's a good thing. I shared the one in Bellevue too yesterday, but individual cops aren't the point. The institution is. Okay, so she's saying, that's nice, but the problem is the institution. There's something wrong with how we train our cops. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe she has some insight into tactics or military discipline, or the standards are not high enough for people to become part of the force, the police force, firemen, the military. Maybe she has some insight. Maybe she's got some understanding of combat or something that the average person wouldn't have. So she would say something like this. Okay, fine. Individual cops or entire precincts pledging to start conversations is nice, but ultimately not effective. And I'm like, what's the problem that you need to solve? The changes and reform needed to end a corrupt, racist system can't be fixed by a couple of town hall meetings. We need more than that. Okay, so exactly how is the police force a corrupt, racist system? If it's corrupt, we have to point to individual practices or people that are corrupt and say, well, they're doing this, and we know that for a fact. That would be a criminal action, and we can charge them and get them out of the system. But you need evidence. You can't just say this is a thing. Now, maybe there's a pattern of corruption. Happens over the years at a certain precinct or a certain group of people, certain behaviors you can monitor. Maybe she would have insight into that. Great. Let's find out. Jennifer, do you have any evidence? Of course not. She's just talking out of her ass. A racist system. Show me cops who are racist. Maybe there's a black man who's against white men, or an Asian man against black man, or all sorts of different cops of different ethnicities that hate other ethnicities. And show me why that's a problem. Show me why that's an issue. Because whether or not you think of someone as white or black and you dislike those people based off their skin tone doesn't matter to me. If you're a cop and you're doing your job properly, that's what matters. In fact, it doesn't really matter if you're a cop at all. It could be any job. So tell me why racism is bad in this regard. Because I don't really care that a cop was racist. I care whether or not he asphyxiated George Floyd or not. Was that necessary force? It looks like it wasn't. You can call him racist, but that's missing the point. He did not behave properly. That was the problem. The behavior from an individual is the problem. So when cops on an individual level march out with you in the streets, you can trust the people, those individuals. You can't trust someone you haven't met, at least to walk with you, but that's the feeling you get. So that's why I would say you need better training, better discipline, and better self-control. To argue that the entire institution is faulty, well, you got to tell me what training, what part of that institution is faulty. You can't just say it's a racist, corrupt institution. That's the wrong answer. If you think the institution is at fault, you have to say this practice is not strict enough. The standards are not high enough. You need to train your cops to do X. And you have to have reprimand. You have to have a system of checks and balances. That would explain how these problems get solved, not saying it's racist and corrupt. How is it corrupt? What, money laundering is going to make better cops or worse cops? Maybe. Are racist cops going to solve problems? I don't know. Maybe. We need fundamental demilitarization of the police force, no more chemical weapons and rubber bullets and riot gear, reform in what jobs the police is supposed to do, conflict resolution, for example, shouldn't be part of the role of law enforcement, that's social work. Okay, so here we got some major red flags. The fundamental demilitarization of the police force. If she's saying that you need less training, less strict guidelines, I think we can dismiss her entire opinion. Because if you see problems with any organization and it's demilitarization, the military is discipline. If there's anything you're going to learn in the military, it's discipline. And she's saying you need less military. That's a problem. Now, if she means less violent force, great, fine. But the reason why you have cops is to protect you from violent scenarios and other scenarios. So to say that they shouldn't have chemical weapons like tear gas, which is not lethal, and rubber bullets and riot gear, then what the hell do you want them to use? Batons? I'd rather them have lethal powers at their disposal, because that's why you call them. They're the first response. They know when to use lethal force. And the only time they don't know is after they haven't been trained properly to lose their composure, which I believe is what happened with George Floyd. I don't know exactly what was going through that person's mind. We would love to find out. Everyone would like to find out how this tragedy occurred. But the answer is never less discipline, less control, less training. It's more training, more discipline, more practice, and more control. So already her head's in some other fantasy land. Reform and what jobs the police are supposed to do. Conflict resolution, for example, shouldn't be part of the role of law enforcement. That's social work. Well, guess what? Police are multifaceted. Sometimes you could be a beat cop, you could be a detective. Sometimes you're in riot gear. Sometimes you're doing lethal things. Police are trained for conflict resolution. That's kind of their thing. They come on the scene. They realize what's going on. They make the call, the best call they can. Should they be trained in better conflict resolution? Absolutely. Of course they should be. We need better training. We need higher standards, not lower standards. Now, individuals like the cop in question, that's a tragedy. That should never have happened. And more training would have probably prevented that. But to say they have to stop doing conflict resolution, they have to stop being lethal, what's the point? What's the point of having police if they're not going to carry guns or not going to use lethal force? If they're not going to resolve conflicts? Do you call the social workers whenever there's a crisis scenario? What are they going to do? Call a lawyer? What's a lawyer going to do? Like what? That's illegal. A man with a gun. There's a long list of other things, but even just abolishing individual practices such as stop and frisk is not enough. I don't know. What's the problem with stop and frisk? Tell us exactly why it doesn't work. We need to understand that systemic injustice can't be solved by turning a few knobs. It requires always a power shift. Now this is where I begin to question her motives and her understanding of politics. Because why would you be asking or talking about power shifts and requiring that change? I don't get it. What exactly is she getting at here? Is stop and frisk a bad thing? Why? Has it helped people? Has it prevented crime? Has it not prevented crime? What are you talking about, Jennifer? Tell us what stop and frisk didn't work and why, and how we need to understand the systemic injustice that requires a power shift to fix it. Because that sounds like a load of bullshit. You have to explain what you're talking about. You can't just say throw it away. How are you just going to deal with conflict, violent conflict? Without guns? Subsequently, and this is why it's so complicated, if we demilitarize the police force, all of America needs to be too. Okay, this is getting insane now. It's one thing to put the power back into the people because the cops are a military force, which they should never be. They're not supposed to be a military force. But if you start saying not only the cops need to demilitarize, so do the people, you're like, wait a second. You want to take the rights away from the people? And if you're talking about America, taking away their guns and their right to defend themselves, then we've got a slight problem. I thought she was going to the direction of giving people more power to defend themselves, giving them more access to firearms, more standards, more ways of learning to be stronger and healthier and safer. It sounds backwards. This sounds like the exact opposite and dumbing down of a free and fair society or a safe society. It sounds like you're just going to have all the criminals destroy your police force and run rampant. No access to mass destruction weapons to regular Americans. What the hell is a mass destruction weapon? What the hell are you talking about? No rifles? Oh, so they can't hunt? We even have a long gun registry in Canada. You're not allowed to own a handgun, but you can register to own a long arm or a rifle. No machine guns. What's a machine gun? Are you talking about a fully automatic? They're already illegal. So what are you talking about? No large caliber rounds. There, I said it. Yeah, you're taking away people's rights. You're taking away their property. Why? How is that going to help the police force? How is that going to help the people? What would happen with some rioters and looters who are destroying public and private property? What are store owners going to do if they don't have a gun? They're going to lose their property. They're going to get smashed across the face, or they could die trying to protect their business. And we've seen a few of those already, which is depressing, because if only those people had a gun, they could have protected themselves and their property. Our prison system needs reform. Here we go. So we're just changing topics now. We went from the police system to the prison system, given it is built on the incarceration of black and brown people and immigrants to make money. No, it's built on keeping people away from society in a humane way. It's called incarceration. It has nothing to do with black and brown people. What the hell are you talking about? It's about putting criminals behind bars, which is the point of prison. Private prisons need to be fully abolished to break cycles of inequality and violence. You see, this is, the exact opposite. If she was dismantling the public system and bringing up the private system, then she'd have an actual argument. You cannot replace something with nothing, because there's going to be a power vacuum and people are going to be scared to want to be in a society. Where are all the people to protect me? Who's going to protect my store or my house if something bad happens? And you also have taken away our weapons. You see how backwards thinking this is? How she's just creating horrific scenarios for a society or a city you don't want to live in? Private prisons, like this is silly. Private prisons need to be fully abolished to break cycles of inequality. What cycle of inequality and violence? Maybe there is. Show us the cycle and how private prisons contribute to that. You can't just say these crazy ideas and expect people to take you seriously. You can already see where I'm going here. To where a bunch of people die and all the criminals have all the guns. Revolution is not easy, and it's complicated. It has many steps and many stages. Okay, so now she's talking about some Che Guevara weirdness, and I don't know how revolution is going to occur when you don't have any weapons. Who's going to overpower the other party? The way that revolutions happen is with blood. That's how it's classically happened. That's probably how it's always going to happen. You cannot force people to do anything, and that's why they have to die. One party sees that as the other party as evil or unjust or unfair, and they have to be eliminated or else. An interconnected system of racial inequality and violence seeps through many, many systems. Again, what systems are you talking? So we went from systemic to now actual systems. And I'm like, what systems are you talking about? The judicial system? The police system? The penal system? Like, which system? And why is racism a problem in those systems? Just give me examples. Give me numbers. Give me something to look at. You can't just make these broad blanket statements and expect anyone to take you seriously. Even if you have, a huge megaphone of 36,000 followers on YouTube, on Twitter. A police officer kneeling won't change that. You know what? It won't. But it's individual people doing individual tasks that we have to look to. We can't say the system is flawed and then say, well, we just do away with the system because another system will simply take its place. In case you don't know, we live in a society. We all live in a hierarchy of some sort. Your family unit, your people on your block, people in your community, people in your region, people in your city. We're all working on top of each other in some regard. Same with a business. We cannot just do away with the system because eventually someone else will take that place. Someone will need to organize others. Someone will need to tell people what to do. There has to be a hierarchy in place. Unless, again, you're promoting a different system, I don't see it. You have to replace a system with something else. Not just take away everyone's guns. It doesn't solve the problem, Jennifer. If people don't have guns, they'll use their fists, they'll use rocks, they'll use knives, they'll use whatever they can to defend themselves or to fight back. So, I'm just going to read one more of her because she's quoting someone else. All revolutions have, it's the same thing. This is actually a little funny because I don't know where she's coming up with this stuff. This sounds as if she's game designing stuff. This is an excellent list. All revolutions have people with many roles, and you need all of them. I'm like, what revolutions are you talking about? The French Revolution? The American? Where are we going with this, Jennifer? Coordinators, again, hierarchy. People monitoring police movements. Spies? Like, what are you talking about? You need brawlers and protectors who have experience and are able to be at front lines. Revolution is coordination and unity. So it sounds as if she wants to put her tank units up in front in the front lines. She wants her casters on the back lines casting magic missile and doing AoE damage. And then you have your brawlers or your DPS guys sort of with your tanks. I don't know what the hell what she's talking about. I think she'd stay in game design and not have her crazy Marxist. I don't know if this is even Marxist. I think this is just crazy talk. Left-leaning nut job talk? I don't know. But trying to take away people's Second Amendment rights, at least in the States, not going to happen, Jen. But thanks for your input, Jennifer. We like to know how crazy you are. Anytime you think you could revolutionize society with crazy ideas, no stats, no references, no logic, no historical evidence, really nothing, aside from the ramblings of a crazy woman who happens to be a game designer. Always fun. Thanks for listening, guys. Have yourself a great day.